Hello and welcome back to today's video. Today we're talking about something really critical to each and every one of us, especially if you're working in the workplace, either you're an entrepreneur or you're even an employee and you are growing. Yes, because we all grow, don't we? That's one of the things and one of the characteristics of a human being. It is no news that today's workforce has the widest age diversity ever and that most organizations have employees working side by side that are representing between 4 to 5 generations. It is also no news that these different generations have varied work habits, expectations, and communication style. Yes, in case you do not know, different generations have different work habits, they communicate differently, and they expect, things differently, and is no news. Today's story is an example of the implication of a multi-generational workforce. In case we do not know what a multi-generational workforce means, I will define it. A multi-generational workforce is a workplace that includes employees of different age group. These can consist of the silent generation, those people that were born between 1928 and 1945. It can also consist of baby boomers, those generation born between 1946 and 1964. We're talking about Generation X, people born between 1965 and 1980, millennials or Generation Y, people born between 1981 and 1996, and the Gen Z, as we know them as the Generation X, born between 1997 and 2012. So these are the various generations that can exist in a workplace. So some organizations would have just a few of this generation, maybe two or three of them, but some organizations or even some countries that have got their pension year really late would have more, 4 to 5 of this generation working together. So imagine you're in your 60s, you work very hard, you take your job seriously, you care about professionalism, and you're surrounded by much younger colleagues who don't share the same values as you do. They laugh, they chat. To you, they seem to be wasting time. You ask them for quietness, but so that you can focus. But instead of that, you end up in a court claiming age discrimination. This is exactly what happened to this individual that we're telling their story today. This story was gotten from the People Management magazine in the United Kingdom. So this individual, I will be holding her name and I'll be holding different names so that we don't, we're just talking about this story. She's a 66 years old book administrator. She submitted a claim against her employers who, and this was dismissed at the tribunal. So today we're going to be unpacking this story, but most importantly, we'll be looking at the real lessons for your career, the real lessons for my career, and the real lessons that we're going to learn because we are growing, and that's the truth. More generations will come into the workplace. We will be seeing different things, and definitely we all have different expectations. So the lessons that we'll be learning today will be lessons about workplace culture, communication, protecting your own mental health. So that at the end of this video, we will have practical strategies that will be able to apply whether you are 25, whether you are 45, or even in your 65. Let's start with unpacking the story of this individual's journey. She joined her employer in December 2020 as a booking administrator. She was the oldest person in the company. Most of her colleagues were in their 20s, 30s, with just one person in their 50s. Now, from the very beginning, she had struggled with the office environment. She found it really noisy and distracting, especially when making phone calls. She told her manager about this, that it was unprofessional for colleagues to have personal conversation during working hours. She even said, "We're not paid to socialize." Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. As time went on, her frustration grew. She noticed people getting up from desk, not answering phones and wasting time. Her manager told her, just focus on your own KPIs. But she felt that culture itself was dragging her down. Early in this year, daily phone call targets was increased from 100 to 120, and she felt she couldn't hit these targets or she couldn't hit those numbers because of the constant noise. She raised concern, she submitted a grievance, saying at the end of the day, her head was pounding. So at the end of every workday, her head was always pounding, according to this individual. She was worried she might even be developing dystonia, which is a condition of hoarse voice when straining to be heard. She asked that she should be moved to a different role, but that wasn't possible. So at the end, she resigned and took her case to the tribunal, claiming age discrimination and harassment. Now, let's look into what the tribunal said. Of course, we know that the tribunals are made up of judges, juries, and they look at the case and they decide on the fairness of balance of what happened. So, these were her claims that she put forward. The first, that her colleagues' behavior were unprofessional and disruptive. Secondly, she also said that she was disadvantaged because of her age. Thirdly, she said that sitting long period at her age was discriminatory, even that the office dog could be a hazard. But here's what the tribunal concluded. The tribunal concluded that all of these claims were not age discrimination, that it was about different attitudes to work. And let's look at it critically, right? This individual in our 60s definitely sees work in a different point of view. She sees work in a different light. She sees work in a different perspective, especially, concentrating, focusing on what she needs to do. But on the other hand, our colleagues like to work, and while they're working, they like to socialize. So definitely that's a different attitude to work. We've got two different individuals or two different class of people that look at work differently. And let's remove the age out of this now and say, okay, fine. There are some people even in their 40s, there are some people in their 20s that are extremely focused. They like to focus. They don't like any distraction. They don't like music when they are reading. They don't like music when they are working. So, yes, that's why the tribunal is looking at this as not being age discrimination. So, I'm just wanting to put that out there so that we understand, right? Because people look at things differently. In looking at all of this, it wasn't because of her age that, the workplace or the attitude of her colleagues were different. Her colleagues' attitude to work was different. It wasn't necessarily because of her age. And that's what the tribunal said, that this wasn't about age discrimination. It was about different attitude to work. She valued quiet, professionalism, and being focused. Her younger colleagues, on the other hand, valued social connection and a more relaxed environment or a more relaxed atmosphere. Honestly, neither approach is not wrong. And that's exactly what the tribunal said, that neither approach wasn't wrong, but the expectations were different, and that was what caused the friction. The tribunal said that it wasn't reasonable to expect everybody to share the same standard as you do. Honestly, yes, as painfully as that sounds, that's true. People are different, and it really will be unreasonable to expect everybody to think the way we think. It's just we just have to learn to manage, to cohabit with people, especially in the workplace. But this is not a judgment zone. We're just reading this story. We want to learn from this story, even as individuals, no matter what age that we are. Let's continue. In short, this individual lost the case. The judges ruled it out that it was a cultural clash, not an unlawful discrimination. Let's go into the lessons that this story packs for everyone. I really don't want to look at this story as, a lesson for people that are older, but I want us to learn from this story as people that are growing. Because yes, you might be 20 today, you might be 25 today, in the next 20 years you will be 45, and in another coming 20 years you'll be 65. So this is a lesson that we will all need to learn. The first lesson to me as an individual is that cultural fit matters. Yeah, as difficult as it sounds, right? Skills, performance sometimes cannot beat a cultural fit. Whether you feel comfortable in the culture of an organization or you are not comfortable in the culture of an organization, it really depends on you. If you're a focused person, you're a structured worker, and you don't like to work in a chatty or a noisy environment, honestly, you will be a mismatch in an organization where, maybe it's a media house, they like to listen to music, they like to chat, it's an open floor office and people talk, to each other to get ideas and all of that. There is really nothing wrong with you wanting to be in a quiet place, and there is also nothing wrong in a chatty and a noisy place. It's just, how does that fit with you? As an individual, you have to check what fits with you. I personally like, even when I'm in a quiet place, I like to play music. So when the place is noisy, I'm not really bothered. That is me. That's my personal opinion. And that's the way I look at it personally. But there are people that I know that they like to work in a very quiet place. And I respect that. I honestly respect that. When I'm chatting with people in the office, and I realize that they're not comfortable with it, then I withdraw. I just go into my quiet mode. But even if I'm in a place where they are chatty and I need to contribute, I will just chat away. That's the truth. But at the same time, I try to balance that with my work. So before joining a company, try to get a sense of its culture. Ask questions at the interview. What kind of office atmosphere? What's the environment like? How does the team balance focus with socializing? You know, just ask all of those questions, because it's going to help you to find out if that's the right place for you, if that's going to fit, or if you're going to fit into that environment, really, because you are the one joining. So it has to be somewhere that you will fit in. Secondly, noise and distractions are not age issue. They are a workplace issue. That's the truth. Like I said earlier in this video, there are people that are 65, they are bubbling, they are socially, they are very socializing people, they are bubbling, they are chatty, and they're just them. It doesn't have to do with your age. It has nothing to do with whether you are young or whether you are old. Yeah, maybe some people that are older are more focused, or maybe they are more mature. So for this individual, they framed their struggle as an age discrimination, but really it's about noise level and expectations of professionalism. Employers in this instance, and I would say, should absolutely take steps when things like this come up, when complaints like this, or somebody's aggrieved about the way things are. If it's an environment where you can adapt things, for example, I would say let's do that, because whilst one person like to be productive, like to be quiet, like to be this, they have the right to that. They are entitled to that. So if they can, if there is a private office, for me, I'll be saying, yeah, there's a private office. Do you want to book that office, or do you want to go into that private office to get your job done? Or secondly, if that's not the case, you can also talk to the younger people or the people that are chatty to keep it low, because it's also affecting other people. For me, the most important thing in the workplace is that balance, really. It's nobody's parlor, it's nobody's house, but at the same time, it's a place where we all have to cohabit. So, yes, when there are issues raised like this, it's really important that we put that into consideration, putting everybody into consideration. And trust me, I will not sit down here and say it's easy to put everybody into consideration, because it's really difficult trying to balance everybody's mood. Because some people, right, sometimes they might be cheating and chatty, and sometimes they might just be very quiet. So, do you want to always make the office suit them? The answer is no. The question is, just make as much flexibility and as much adaptations around the office so that it can suit different people and it can suit everybody if possible. I know it's a difficult thing to ask, but yes, it could be possible sometimes, that it shows that we've shown that reasonable adjustment. We've done those adjustments, we've been flexible. We haven't made it look like, oh, you're complaining. It's all, it's just you, or it's that individual and they're always complaining. Putting people into consideration, I would say, is a good thing to do. Thirdly, communication is everything. Yeah. When this individual raised that concern with their manager told them to focus on their KPI. That response sounded like a shutdown, shutting down the conversation, I would say. But honestly, I really don't know what happened. And for the jury or for the tribunal not to hold that particular line to say, you're unreasonable to them, you were not fair to them, you were this, this, this. There might be other things that the employer has put forward to show that they have listened to this individual a couple of times and they just didn't want it to look like they were targeting the younger group in that department. I'm just thinking, honestly, this is me assuming that wasn't stated in that report, that wasn't written, but I want to assume that that could be the case. But looking at it from the other lens, if that's not the case, the manager could have listened, the manager couldn't, would have not dismissed the concern, and that would have probably not escalated the tension in situations like that. If you're an employee and you learn to frame things, in order to get your productivity high, I would say if you do well in a quiet place, you can agree to work on quiet hours, for example. You can agree to come early to work, maybe between 8, so you can move around your working time if that's going to be possible in your organization. That's one. Secondly, you can decide, again, like I said, get a quiet room so you can come in, talk to your colleagues, say hi to everybody, but tell them that, guys, I need to be in that separate room. I'm just there, I'm working. I need to be alone because I need to be able to get that target. I need to be able to move, get that timeline, get that deadline and everything that you need to do. So yes, it's important that you say that to your colleagues. Fourthly, one of the lessons that this case and this story has taught us is know what is discrimination and what is not discrimination. Age discrimination is related when you are treated unfairly because of your age. For example, if you were not promoted and the reason that they gave for you not being promoted was because of your age, or you've got comparators, you've got people in your team that are promoted that've got probably the same timelines and everything like you have, they were promoted no matter what it is, and you were not promoted, and the reason was really flimsy or the reason didn't hold waters. You can use that other individual or those other people in your team as a comparator and say, I think that I've been discriminated because of my age, and maybe because they have been promoted because they were younger. You have to get all your facts. That's the facts about getting, having to check whether it's discrimination or not. You have to be sure that everything, you've met your target, you've met your KPIs, you are really and you are undoubtedly eligible for that promotion, but you were not promoted, but other people were promoted. So it's not a case whereby maybe nobody was promoted in the team because the organization was going through a bankruptcy, or because the organization had a redundancy, or they were just slowing down, that rather than terminating employment or going through a redundancy or restructuring, that they would decide not to promote people just to save costs. In that situation, you were not the only one that was affected. That is not discrimination in any way. So yes, it's really important that we know different protected characteristics that one can use to file against discrimination. But it's also important that you know what it is and you have your facts, you've got your comparators, you're really sure of everything before going. And the reason is because, culture, it's not age. When something's about culture, it's not age. And knowing the difference can save you time, can save you money, and most importantly, it can save you the stress of not winning a case. Lastly, protect your well-being, but pick your battles. Yeah, it's very important that we protect our well-being. And I think at the end of the day, this individual would have been stressed, resentful, and ultimately they would have been out of a job. But if you find yourself in a situation whereby your colleagues are constantly making you angry, and there's nothing about you, I would say it's not your behavior, it's not something that you can influence, and it's really baked into the culture of that place. It's a culture where people are not corrected, or it's a culture where people do whatever they want to do, and you cannot influence it, you cannot change it. Sometimes the fastest and the smartest move is for you to find a better environment. That's the truth. I'm not saying you should flee. I'm not saying you should run away from things that you can change. If you can influence it, if there is the right process, if there are policies that you can hang on to, and those policies can help change things. If there are ways where your voice will be heard, if there is a portal where you can say those things and you'll be heard, It's easy for you to change it, it's easy for you to influence it. And honestly, that's a thumbs up to you if you can change that. But if it's a place where, from top to bottom, it's just a place where everybody does anything that they want to do, your mental health, your sanity is more important. And I think you also need to choose your battles, because when you fight so long, you begin to lose, that courage. For some people, oh, that's when they are just starting. So if you know that you've got the energy, you can fight from start to finish, go ahead and fight. Change that culture. It's a thumbs up to you, it's a win for you, because it's also something that you'll be glad that you did. You were able to impact on that culture positively. But if not, if you know that that's going to cause you depression, if you know that that's going to really make you feel, for lack of a better word, not trusting people, so you don't need to be in that battle, I would say. That brings us to the end of the lessons. Let's talk about the wider implication. This case has shown us that there is something bigger about workplaces and the increase in multi-generational in the workplace. This is just one office. We might have 20 people, that are fresh starters, coming out from the universities. We'll have colleagues in their 60s with decades of experience. The challenge is finding the balance, and that's the most important part. Finding the balance about, how to respect people, how to look at people from different approaches and maintain productivity. It's a big task for employers, it's a big task for managers that need to be sensitive. Noise distraction, even things like desk setup, office pets, these can affect people differently. Yes, it can affect people differently. And we just have to be careful, and we have to be sensitive, because we're dealing with people, although they're coming from different homes, different culture, different backgrounds, and the age difference and everything is different. There are positives of this multi-generational workplace, to everybody and to employers. And that's why finding that balance is really important. So, what do you think? Was this individual right to push back against her colleague's behavior, or was the tribunal right by saying this was just a cultural mismatch? And I would like to hear your comments down in the comment section. Let's see what your take is, because yes, the tribunals are people, they are subject to opinions, but they look at things really critical, I would say. From everything that I've seen, my own opinion, I'll keep my opinion. I would like to hear your opinion. Do you think that this individual was right by challenging this and saying that it was age discrimination? Or do you think that the tribunal was right by saying it was just a cultural mismatch? Do you want to also look at other things that you can pick up from the story that probably wasn't talked about here or at the tribunal, that didn't come up? Things that could have been mitigated, things that could have been averted, that maybe the employers didn't look at, or that this individual didn't look at. What is the big takeaway for you? Your career success isn't just what you do, it is about where you do it and who you do it with. Don't underestimate the power of workplace culture. For me, these are my takeaway. I will not underestimate the power of workplace culture. If it doesn't suit me, sometimes the bravest move is to step away and find the ones that suit you. Yeah. Step away, find the one that suits you. Be aware of your environment. And how would you do that? Is by understanding what's going on here. Is this embedded in the culture, or is this just some individuals? If it's one or two colleagues, it's easy for you to work on it. But if it's embedded in the culture and they're not willing to change from top, down to the employees, then guys, it's better that you have that move. So yes, if you found today's video valuable and helpful, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Share this with somebody who might be navigating a tricky workplace themselves, and let me know your comments. Have you ever struggled with a workplace culture clash? Or have you ever struggled with a discrimination, whether it's age, whether it's disability, or whatever it is? Have you ever struggled? And how were you able to navigate that? I would love to hear your story. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.